People are not broken, they adapted to survive. Welcome to the Way Out of Childhood Trauma with Barb Wartzel-Smith. Welcome on our next episode of the Way Out of Childhood Trauma. And today is here with me the coach Victoria Bailey. So I know Vicky, as I call her, sometime, and she's amazing coach and has a really interesting own story of recovery from trauma and now helping other people to recover. So, Vicky, can you introduce yourself to our listeners a little?
Sure. Thank you, Barb. It's a pleasure to be here, first of all. Today, in this iteration of myself, I work as a coach and really focus on helping people find their way out of trauma, childhood trauma, the complex trauma that you and I have talked about. And it's really based on my own experience being able to exit and put behind me my own childhood trauma. And I rely on developing tools, constantly shifting the types of tools I use to help myself so I can continue to gain awareness and grow. And that's the essence of what I share with people I work with is how to develop their own tools that work for them, because we're all so different and we all come out of childhood with some sorts of trauma. And where we get stuck is in different places. We all have the same fundamental needs, but we all have different stories and different hurts and different mechanisms that we've used to cope with them in unhealthy ways. And it's developing the healthy ones that I'm interested in.
Yeah. And so what would be some kind of unhealthy coping mechanisms, and did you experience some of them?
Yes, for myself, I have a very long list of unhealthy coping mechanisms that in early childhood, I developed, things like an eating disorder in early childhood, refusal to eat, eating only sugar substances to comfort myself. I developed dissociative behavior, withdrawal and isolationist behaviors. I started drinking alcoholic beverages at the age of 10. I was a full-blown alcoholic by the time I was 14, and drug use and high-risk behaviors in a variety of different ways. I developed a reckless disregard for life. I had no value of self. I developed codependent behavior, very codependent behavior. Intense capacity for denial of what is reality. So by the time I got to adulthood, I was in easy to understand terms, a hot mess.
Yeah. So what was the turning point for you? Or is it a series, or do you can recognize some turning point for you?
Yeah, there have been a couple of different turning points or bottoms in my life, and the first was after I became a parent. I would love to say I got sober before I became a parent, but that wasn't my reality. After I became a parent, a series of events occurred that really took me over the deep end, and I ended up overdosing twice. And when I woke up in the hospital the second time, I just had this deep awareness that I could not touch those substances again, that was done. How and why I had that sense, I don't know. Since that moment, I've never once had the thought of wanting to take a drink or taking a drug to numb myself, to take myself outside of me. That ended right then at that moment, and it began my journey of self-exploration, initially through 12-step work, and then delving deeper into different spiritual ideas and philosophies and yoga, meditation. And I had a really pesky big eating disorder that I carried as a secret for all the years of sobriety that I just couldn't shake. And that was, I kind of shifted from the addiction of alcohol and drugs into the really abusive food behavior, using food as a weapon against myself, either severely restricting, binge purging, or overeating. So I was constantly shifting in size and shape, and I didn't understand it as a I didn't understand that I was using those behaviors to cope with trying to not feel, to numb myself out.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, what do you think that the leading, what do you see from your experience and people you work with? What what do you see that is that the main reason why actually children going for this unhealthy coping mechanisms?
I think one thing is what behaviors are modeled around them are highly influential, and if substances are easily accessible, that becomes a factor. I think for me, my brain wired at a really young age. I was hiding from my enraged mother under the kitchen table with the sugar bowl. And that gave me a sense of safety and comfort. And my brain wired that sugar equals safety and comfort. And so it can be one experience that just has that capacity to wire in the brain like that. And that became, my trauma response, so to speak. That became, and alcohol is a derivative of, it's very closely associated with sugar. So it makes a lot of sense in retrospect. And I think anything that changes the way a person feels in the moment can become that thing. Whether it's, I constantly read and escaped through reading into other lives and dissociated from mine with reading. So that became an obsession when I was very young also. And to this day, I have to be very careful about reading, because I can like call in sick to work to read a novel, and that's not healthy at that juncture. So it can be anything that allows that sense of numbness and escape that wires in. And for me, I associate it with my brain actually thinks it's helping me.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm trying to protect
so
you.
It's trying to protect me. And so it's like giving me the hit of dopamine every time I do those things that allow me to numb out. And my brain doesn't know that I need to actually feel the feelings so I can not get stuck in the behavior. Yeah.
So when you start your recovery process, when you started, did you believe that you can recover? Because I facing a lot of people who still are even told by many, even like professionals, that you are alcoholic. Once alcoholic, you're always alcoholic, or you had eating disorder, you will manage it, but you are forever anorectic or bulimic. How was your journey, and what you would tell people now and where you are now?
I definitely got those messages. And I haven't had a drink in over 30 years. So I will never sit and say again that I won't label myself as an alcoholic. I won't hang that on me any longer, because I do believe I recovered. And I think that's going to be up to every individual to, through their own agency, through their own inner wisdom and sense of strength, to determine for themselves. The messages that come through, for example, in 12-step meetings, is that, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And that is reiterated over and over and over again. And I bought into that for a long time. And I bought into that regarding my eating disorder as well. And I viewed it as a thing I needed to get rid of, overcome. I viewed myself as broken, and that perspective was inaccurate, and it was buying into the storytelling of things and not understanding the bigger picture. And I worked with an eating disorder specialist therapist for over a decade. And there was a point in time where I was doing all of these things. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. I was turning everything I could out of those books into a tool to use in my own life. And I asked her if she thought I could recover, and she told me repeatedly, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. And when I was first getting sober and first introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous and working through that set of steps, the man that took me through the steps said, you may not believe that you can recover. I believe you can. And that was so meaningful to me. And I don't think he spoke those words with the same understanding then that I have of recovered now. I think it was, I know you can stop drinking and not take a drink again. But my sense of what that means is so much broader than it was. And when my therapist was unable to acknowledge that, yeah, I think you can do it, that was the beginning of the end of that relationship, where I was like, what am I, if you don't believe, like, why am I showing up here and spending all this money on therapy if you don't think I can recover?
Absolutely.
And with eating disorders, I really believe that recovery is possible. And the definition of it is how I define it now is not what I thought it was, a few years ago. When I can go through the day and acknowledge, oh, I feel hungry. What do I feel hungry for? I'm going to eat. Oh, I'm getting a fullness cue. I feel that in my body. I'm attuned to that and can stop eating and walk away satiated and not hungry until an appropriate amount of time has gone by. And this varies. I don't eat according to a meal plan. I don't eat at the same time every day. I don't eat the same things day in and day out. I try to broaden my horizons continuously. And if I do feel sometimes where it's like, oh, I'm having one of those thoughts I used to call eating disorder thoughts. I'm having a moment that now is a red flag for me to turn internal and ask myself, am I missing something today? Am I having stress that I'm unaware of? What is really going on with me? I've turned the times that happens now, I've turned those into opportunities to learn and grow. And that there are days, weeks, even months that go by where I don't have those types of experiences. And then something will shift in my life and I'll have some of that, because I developed an eating disorder in early childhood and practiced that behavior through the decades of my life until recently. So those neural pathways are like the Grand Canyon in the United States, right? They're huge grooves in my brain, and they keep firing. And sometimes I think of them like ghost thoughts. Like my brain is just so used to offering me those thoughts. Nothing's actually happening.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's worked once, why we cannot use it again? Is it like it's familiar? Like let's try to use it. But so that's a great story, and it's really bringing the hope for people to that it's possible to recover. It takes some work and effort, but it's possible. What do you think that it's that feel that people can get to, like how they would describe that feeling they have that their life changed from that drama of trauma responses and unhealthy coping mechanism, what do you think that it's people looking for?
I think, well, I know what I was looking for, and really the primary driver all these years has been peace of mind.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because my thoughts were chaotic, and I knew I wanted to be a certain way in life, and I couldn't do that. And I was always internally frustrated that I would try to put my best foot forward or want to go out and do things, or be better at something. And the thinking was always, the fears were too big, the self-doubt was too big, and so I'd go running back to the behaviors of numbing myself out, isolating, and hiding. I needed to be invisible.
Mm.
And all I wanted was peace of mind. I couldn't even think bigger than that. And what I've gotten, Barb, is so much more than peace of mind. I have peace of mind, and I have tools now that I can bring up rapidly to get myself out of distorted thinking, obsessive thinking, catastrophic thinking quickly. I can take myself out of that quickly now if it happens, and it doesn't happen often anymore. I wake up and I'm excited for the day. I feel joy. I feel happiness, and I feel a sense of confidence that whatever comes my way, I can be okay in the face of whatever happens.
Mm.
I've never had a sense of that before. I have a sense of being in my physical body, a sense of connection. And I can move on my yoga mat and feel into myself in ways I never imagined. I
Mm.
can meditate and feel connected to the broader universe in ways I could never imagine. And I can present, I never had a sense that people, like, I would never call people because I thought, oh, they wouldn't want to talk to me. I never had a sense of that I brought value to anything. And now I have a sense that I do. And I, like, even if I go to the grocery store down the street, I look forward to whose line am I going to get in when I check out, and saying hello to them. I've learned their names and look them in the eye and smile and want to crack a joke or something so they smile. And for me, that
It's
is,
just, yeah. So I will ask you, like, do you think that eating disorders or these unhealthy coping mechanisms are prevalently issue of the women, or do you find it also with the men? Or
it's so, eating disorders are so prevalent among women, and the numbers of women with eating disorders are skyrocketing. However, we are seeing a large shift into the male population as well, because so much more emphasis has been placed by the media, by social media, um, on the male figure, as well now, whereas women have had that pressure for decades, really.
Mm.
Men now have that pressure as well. And the bodybuilding culture, and all of that, social media has hammered that home, that you have to look a certain way to be okay. And so we are seeing more men showing up with eating disorders. And I think there's an additional stigma that it's a woman's issue. And so that's the men that will come forward and begin addressing it are so deep into it because the shame is that much greater for them to deal with. So that's unfortunate that the severity has to be, I'm at a desperate level before I'll reach out and seek any assistance, rather than maybe earlier in the process where recovery would have been a little more straightforward. The longer we do the behavior, the longer it takes to unwind.
So, with whom, what type of people you work with, and what is kind of and yeah, like your program, or what are you doing with people? What people can expect if they would want to work with you? What you offering?
So yeah, predominantly I work with women. And again, I think it's because men have it's harder for men to reach out and ask. I've worked with a couple. And what people can expect when they work with me is going to be different for each person. Because fundamentally, I understand that everyone's eating disorder or everyone's addiction is rooted in different sources. And so the solutions have to be tailored to them. And I can offer all of these ideas and suggestions, and the individual has to try practicing the different things to figure out which, oh, that works. And I can do that, and that helps me. And best case scenario, and I've seen this happen repeatedly, is when they hit on something that works, one of the tools, one of the adaptive tools, one of the healthy tools, functional tools that we talk about, when they take it and then start modifying it in ways that really helps them, they start really understanding how adaptive tools benefit them. And it becomes their own tool then, and it's no longer mine and my suggestion. And that's the best case scenario of it.
That's great. That's great. So, so you mentioned that you're working with people with eating disorder and also with people with addictions, or so that's kind of people who or
Yeah,
what kind of person, should contact you? What were they looking for?
definitely people with eating disorders. I feel like I offer a great foundation for digging out of the behaviors, for developing a tool set. I've worked with a lot of people that have what the professional psychological world refers to as comorbidities, which is a terrible, terrible term, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
It's a terrible term. Really, a lot of people with eating disorders have alcohol or drug problems as well.
Yeah.
And they cycle back and forth from using one and being out of control with one to, oh, I've got to get my shit together, and pull and rein in the say alcohol or drugs, and then they go over to the eating disorder and get out of control with that, and then it's like, oh, I've got to get my act together here, and the other one pops up, and they're just ever cycling through the different unhealthy mechanisms they've developed to cope with the world, with their reality, with themselves. And it's a very painful cycle. I say that as someone who experienced it for years and years and years. And even after I left alcohol and drugs behind, I was cycling from, the different forms of the eating disorder that I had, because at various stages in my life, it took different forms, and all of them very painful. And so I think people with eating disorders that are really open to experimenting, that have tried things like therapy or treatment, that it doesn't work, and they've made some progress, and they understand that it takes effort, and they're willing to put forth the effort, because I'm not going to say something that's magical and you're all of a sudden going to spontaneously be in sustained recovery forever. I haven't seen that happen.
Yeah.
It's
We have a lot of tools we're using, which can speeding up the process, but it's still work, and it's a habit of thinking, habit of doing. So it's even like that walk to the kitchen back and forward, like you see even if you just open that fridge and you then see just like how your Fitbit steps going up and up because you went to the kitchen and back and opened the fridge and realized, no, okay, no, I'm not. I'm close the fridge again, but like 1,000 steps per day. So it's process, is it? Like, and but I think that it's important for people to realize that it's it's not bad decisions, it's not shameful, it's not that they are not clever or they are weak, that it's really about that trauma, that it's really about that trying to numb that feelings which feel very painful emotionally inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually start that that work needs to be on both levels. It's why often not working these things, like just follow some meal plan or just don't drink, because that emotions are there, and if we don't deal with that emotions, it's just unbearable.
Yeah.
So it's why that vicious circle going, if I stop one thing, it's unbearable going for other things that unbearable, So it's really about that it is rooted in the trauma. And I think that it's important to people to understand that um there are different forms of trauma, and we see it in behaviors of people. What is really story behind, is it?
It really is. It is so rooted in the trauma. It's rooted in the brain wiring. And I think, now I can see it so clearly, whereas for so many years, I didn't have an understanding of why I would do the things I was doing. And that's very frustrating.
Mm.
And I have no disrespect or ill will to the psychological community uh, in any way. I think they are as equally baffled at times by the power of an eating disorder, of the brain to continue to manifest different expressions of distorted behavior and thinking in order to avoid turning inward and doing that internal work. The power of the fear, the power of that perceived pain is so great. The brain is really trying to protect the human from that experience. And so when I started turning myself inward and trying all these different things by myself, there were times where I kind of knocked myself into into an almost catatonic state of pain because I was just experimenting and trying things. And I don't recommend that. I think we can go into the places and uncover the trauma and feel the experiences, and doing it with people that are supportive, and coaching them through it.
Mm.
I think can be really beneficial. And there are certain shortcuts. We've talked about the hypnotic method
Mm.
of going in. And I do that as a self-meditative practice now,
Mhm.
which is really, really helpful. And I think people can learn those tools and practice them. And it boils down to having a willingness to do it, because prying the mind open, I've had to pry my neural pathways, like they're clawed into wanting to do it this way, and I've had to like pry them open to like think a different way. I even to the point where I was out walking my dog one time, and something was really agitating me about one of my family members. And yeah, go figure. And it was something traumatic that had happened more than 30 years ago. And
Mhm.
I was just all, frustrated about it, agitated. And I was just like, I knew my mind was trying to understand something. And so long ago, it's just ridiculous. And I couldn't calm myself down. And I was like, I started talking to myself out loud, walking down the street. And I said to myself, Vicky, can you look at this differently? And you know how you see screensavers with the text that'll pop up and it'll turn backwards? I literally I visualized seeing the problem as a sentence and I turned it back and forth and I turned it upside down. And it literally in that moment allowed a shift to happen where I could think a different thought. So it's doing things to try and shake my
Yeah.
brain out of rigidity and rely on neuroplasticity and, big psychological terms, but we can use our mind, we can use our thinking mind, we can use our everyday ideas and make stuff up
Mm.
to change our neural pathways so our thinking ends up different at the other side of it.
Oh yeah. What I often saying by people ask me like, how is actually recovery from trauma working? I say like, you need to educate your mind, because like when the child is in a situation which causing them to start numbing, causing them to start repressing their strengths, and not just start living in that survival mode. They just stop learning. The mind's not learning what will be appropriate reaction, or what other reactions can be then just hide, for example, or
Yes.
numb. And we need to give the mind the different information. Like I always see mine as supercomputer, but it's doing the best, but only with the data it's given. So when somebody asks me like why I should go for therapy or why should I go for coaching, I say like, because you need new questions. And
Yes. Yes.
because we running it in our mind 1,000,000,000 times and asking as we search over some story or some picture, some memory we remember again, until we ask ourselves different question. And that's it's amazing role of the trauma coaches and therapists, and asking that different point of view, which can lead to that like, aha.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. And having, I will say it's a privilege, it's a pleasure, it is I have goosebumps saying this, to witness those moments with the people I work with, is a gift,
Yeah.
because their life shifts in those moments where they get the aha. And if they have the willingness and they're doing the things, that aha opens doors for them where they didn't think they could go. They never even imagined. And those, I've had those, and they're pretty miraculous moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's why I like to be therapist also, because watching the people really recovering from trauma, really changing their behaviors, their habits, if it's the eating disorders, drug abuse, being angry, depressed, anxiety, it's all symptoms of same issue, just different manifestation of same problem. So, and that seeing that the change, that's worse to wake up early morning or not going to in evening, because it's just magical. And I think that hope is necessary. We need to really, people here needs to hear that there is hope, that is possible recover, that is nothing, it's forever. Trauma is not forever, doesn't has to be. It's not that it didn't happen. Sometimes people feel like that they cannot forgive. I say like, from me, forgiveness, it's not act, but state of mind. You will
Yes.
get there when you resolve your things. And some people could have like really huge things, like really as a child to be afraid of their parents and stuff like that. That's a huge thing. And uh, yet it's possible. And I really always hope that it's, we finding it, some people finding in their 30s, 40s, 50s, hope that sooner will helping or helping their children to recover if they pass it on. Did you
Yes.
see like that generational reactions on like how it's affecting the families if people using unhealthy coping mechanisms?
Yes, I do. Oh, that's a I can see in my own family, um I can look back and see my mother, my father, their behaviors, and what they passed down to myself and my siblings. And I can see amongst my siblings and myself, and this is, I raised my son with a lot of unhealthy behaviors that I was still acting in.
Mm.
And I can see the impact on him, and he's a parent now, and he's learning how to navigate his own stuff. I can't do that for him. I can't do it for anyone. People have to do their own work. And I see him navigating and doing the best he can for his kids to provide. Obviously, he's like, I don't want to do some of the things my mom did. I mean, maybe he has that thought. I haven't asked, but I think if I were him, I might think that. That I certainly had that thought about my parents. I'm going to do it different, and I did. But in trying to do not what they did, I also wasn't learning what was important for me. I was reacting to my parents. And so
Mm.
I think there's some of that generationally. And my son grew up in the environment he grew up in, and some of those behaviors he took on, and some he didn't. And I love him, I support him, I show up for him, and I work with other people that have adult children that they raised while they had the behaviors, and they're coming to terms with their behaviors at a later stage in their life also, where their children have been impacted, and all they can do is that same thing. Like, I keep informing my child, who's an adult, of what I'm doing to learn about myself and grow, and he can take it as he takes it. And that's kind of where we're at. And the people I work with that are, their kids are raised or in their later teens and whatnot, there's a lot of guilt. We live with a lot of guilt and a lot of shame about not being the perfect parent, or having our act together, our ducks in a row when we are raising our kids. And it's forgiving ourselves, bringing compassion to, the disorders I had, the addictions, the eating disorder, those saved my life. If I hadn't done those things, right, those were my survival tools. Same with everybody I work with. They're growing up in trauma, and their brain is wiring a certain way, and they are trying to figure out how to survive. And if you're operating on high alert all the time and you never have a way to come down, you're stuck in that trauma response all the time, it's going to impact the people around you. It
Exactly.
is. Yeah. So it's
Well,
coming to terms with that, and having compassion for myself, and sharing that, as I recover, as I heal, I can just bring love to my child, to my son. And they can do that with their children.
I think that it's important to emphasize that trauma is an explanation, and the trauma is not excuse, but in
Yes.
that way that it can be motivation. And I find that very often people coming to me, their children are their great motivation for that change.
Yes.
They want to be better because of them. They see that how they affect them, and they realize that they cannot help them without first actually working on themselves. So I would definitely encourage people to go and seek the help. And so if you, for example, would want to try to work with, reach out to Vicky to see how she can help you. What will be the best way to contact you? What is the best way to get in touch with you, Vicky?
I have email addresses, Vicky, VICKI, at mymeconsulting.com. It's MYME consulting.com. Vicky at mymeconsulting.com. I have the website, mymeconsulting.com, and there's an info, you can put your info in and it will email me directly from there. I'm in the United States, so if anyone wants to call, I'm +1 808-280-3973. I'm also on WhatsApp. I don't know, is my is my WhatsApp just my name and phone number? It's just my name and phone number on
Yeah,
Yeah.
your phone number. You need the phone number. So don't worry if you didn't catch it. You will find the info in the description of episode how you can contact the Vicky or me if you will want to look for what it's possible and how you can move forward in your recovery. It's why our podcast called Way Out of Childhood Trauma. We're looking for the steps forward on our journey. So, Vicky, closing, what you would like give the one advice for people who maybe still in some unhealthy coping mechanisms or kind of struggling with get better. So what would be like your message for them?
I would say keep trying, never give up, and it's never too late. And you mentioned being motivated by children. I'm still motivated to set a good example for my son. That's still a driving force in why I continue to do the deeper work and uncover pain and heal from childhood trauma. I want that to share. I want to set that example for my son and my grandsons. And I think for anybody who's still stuck, who's still feeling like they're doing things and they don't want to be doing them, whatever they are, whether it's, relationship addictions, alcohol, food, drugs, there is a way out and there is hope, and keep trying different things, because I feel like habituating, getting stuck in one thing and thinking if I keep doing this, this will be the solution, can be as problematic also. It's a variety of things that have allowed me to make the progress I've made, and that I share that message with the people I work with over and over again. Is like, don't let any of the tools that work for you get habituated. Keep changing them. If it becomes a habit, we stop thinking about it, and then we lose our presence with it. We lose that mindfulness. That is a key to recovery, in my opinion.
That's absolutely amazing advice. Thank you for that. So thank you for coming to our podcast.
Thank you.
I was welcome. And thank you for those listeners. You can leave the message if you want any topic or a question. You can leave the comments on any media you watching us or listen to us. And see you next time. Thank you for listening to Way Out of Childhood Trauma. If today's episode resonates with you, visit your steps to explore resources, training, and support designed to help you understand trauma, reconnect with your inner strengths, and rewrite your story. Until next time, take your next step